You might pull these plants out in seconds, without realizing they could quietly support your garden for years. Many gardeners see weeds as a problem, something to remove as quickly as possible. But over time, something surprising begins to show. Some of the fastest growing plants are not harming your soil at all. In many cases, they are doing quiet work beneath the surface. One of these common plants can improve your soil before you even plant anything. Another has been used for generations in ways that many people have slowly forgotten. If this feels confusing, that's very common. You're not doing anything wrong. After watching the same garden spaces across different seasons, year after year, a pattern becomes clear. Not every plant that appears on its own is a mistake. And the last plant we will talk about often surprises even experienced gardeners. Before explaining why this happens, it helps to understand how these plants appear in the first place. When a new plant shows up in your garden, it may feel random. But in many cases, it is not. Plants tend to grow where conditions allow them to survive. And some plants are especially good at noticing changes in soil that we cannot easily see. For example, when soil becomes compacted, certain plants with strong roots begin to appear. When nutrients are low, other types may show up that can tolerate those conditions. In a way, these plants are responding to the environment, almost like quiet signals. This does not mean every weed is helpful in every situation. But it does suggest that their presence often has a reason. Over time, gardeners who observe closely begin to notice this pattern. The same types of plants return to similar areas under similar conditions. It is less about random growth, and more about response. Once you begin to see weeds this way, the question slowly changes. Instead of asking, "How do I remove this?" you may begin asking, "Why is this here?" And that small shift can change how you care for your garden. A very common habit is to remove every weed as soon as it appears. This feels like the right thing to do. It keeps the garden looking neat, and it gives a sense of control. But sometimes, removing everything immediately can interrupt what is happening below the surface. When soil is exposed too often, it can dry out more quickly. It can also lose structure over time. Some fast-growing plants act like a natural cover, protecting the soil from direct sun and helping it hold moisture. There is also a common belief that fast growth means a plant is aggressive or harmful. But fast growth can also be a form of protection. Some plants grow quickly to stabilize the soil or cover bare areas. This does not mean you should let everything grow freely. It simply means that speed alone does not tell the full story. Many experienced gardeners begin by observing first, then deciding what to remove. This small pause can reveal patterns that are easy to miss otherwise. As we look at specific examples, this idea will become clearer. One plant that often appears in firm or compacted soil has a deep, strong root. You may have seen it growing where the ground feels hard, or where water tends to sit on the surface. At first glance, it may seem like a problem. But when you look closer, the root is doing something useful. It pushes down through the soil, creating small channels. These channels allow air and water to move more freely. Over time, this can help loosen the soil naturally. In areas where digging is difficult, this kind of plant is quietly doing that work on its own. When the plant eventually breaks down, those channels remain. They improve drainage and make it easier for other plants to grow. This is one example where a plant is not just surviving in tough conditions. It is slowly improving them. You may not need to keep it everywhere. But noticing where it appears can tell you something important about your soil. Another group of plants works in a quieter way. These plants absorb nutrients from deeper layers and bring them closer to the surface. When their leaves fall or when the plant breaks down, those nutrients return to the topsoil. This process is often called nutrient cycling. In a natural setting, this happens continuously. Plants grow, decay, and return their nutrients to the soil. But in a managed garden, this process is sometimes interrupted. Certain weeds help restore that balance. They gather minerals that other plants cannot easily reach and bring them back into the growing zone. This can slowly improve soil quality without the need for constant additions. It may not be visible right away, but over time, areas with these plants often show healthier growth. Again, the goal is not to let everything grow without control. It is to understand what each plant may be doing before deciding what to remove. Some plants grow faster than anything else in your garden. This can feel frustrating. You remove them, and they return quickly. But fast growth often serves a purpose. In many cases, it protects the soil. Bare soil is exposed to sunlight, wind, and rain. This can lead to drying, erosion, or loss of structure. Fast-growing plants cover that surface quickly, acting like a natural shield. They reduce direct sunlight on the soil and help keep moisture in place. Their leaves break the impact of rain, preventing soil from washing away. This is especially helpful in areas that are left uncovered for long periods. So while fast growth may feel like competition, it can also be a form of protection. This is one of those moments where understanding changes how something looks. What once seemed like a problem may also be providing a benefit. Of course, balance is still important. But recognizing this role can help you decide when to act and when to wait. Different environments bring different types of plants. What grows in one garden may not appear in another. In dry climates, you may notice plants that can survive with very little water. In wetter areas, other types may appear that tolerate moisture. Soil type also plays a role. Sandy soil, clay soil, and rich garden soil each support different kinds of growth. This means weeds can act as small indicators of your local conditions. If a certain plant appears again and again, it may be telling you something about moisture levels, soil texture, or nutrient balance. Instead of seeing it as an intrusion, you can begin to see it as information. Over time, this understanding helps you work with your environment rather than against it. It also reduces the need for constant adjustments, because you begin to recognize what your garden naturally supports. Some plants, even helpful ones, can spread more than expected. This is where gentle control becomes important. A plant that improves soil or protects the surface can still take up space needed for other plants. Left unchecked, it may become difficult to manage. This does not mean it must be removed completely. It simply means it should be guided. You might allow it to grow in certain areas while keeping it back in others. You may remove it before it spreads too far, or trim it to keep it balanced. The idea is not all or nothing. It is about awareness and adjustment. Many gardeners find that once they understand a plant's role, it becomes easier to manage it calmly. There is less urgency, and more confidence in each decision. Now, there is one plant that is often misunderstood more than most. It appears quickly, sometimes in places where you did not expect anything to grow. It may not look special at first. In fact, many people remove it without a second thought. But this plant has a quiet role in supporting pollinators. Its flowers, even if small, can provide food for insects that help your garden thrive. It can also act as a temporary cover, protecting soil while other plants are still growing. In some cases, it has even been used traditionally for simple home uses, though many people no longer recognize it for that purpose. This is often the moment where understanding shifts the most. A plant that seemed unimportant begins to show value. Not because it replaces your main crops, but because it supports the overall system. And that is what makes it surprising. Its benefit is not always obvious, but it is still there. So how do you decide which plants to keep and which to remove? A simple approach is to observe first. Look at where the plant is growing. Notice the condition of the soil in that area. Is it dry, compacted, or exposed? Then consider how the plant is behaving. Is it covering bare ground? Is it growing too densely? Is it interfering with other plants? You do not need complex tools for this. Just a few quiet observations over time. In some cases, you may choose to leave the plant for a while, then remove it later. In other cases, you may remove it sooner to make space. There is no single rule that applies to every garden. Conditions change, and each space is different. What matters most is the habit of noticing before acting. If you're comfortable sharing, I'm curious how you usually handle weeds in your garden. Do you remove them right away, or wait and observe first? Over time, small changes in how you respond can lead to noticeable improvements. You may find that your soil stays healthier, your plants grow more steadily, and your garden requires less effort. And that brings us to a simple but often overlooked idea. You do not need to fight every plant that appears. Some plants are signals. Some are helpers. And some are simply passing through as part of a natural cycle. When you take a step back and watch what is happening, patterns begin to appear. You notice which plants return, which areas need attention, and which parts of your garden are already balanced. This kind of understanding builds slowly. But it also brings a sense of ease. Because instead of reacting to every change, you begin to respond with awareness. And often, the healthiest gardens are not the ones where everything is controlled. They are the ones where nature is observed, understood, and gently guided. Sometimes, the best thing you can do is a little less. And in that quiet space, your garden often does more than you expected.